Obviously, the sport has come such a long way. It used to be like begging people to play, and now it's like we have so many clinics going on around the country, and it's crazy how fast it's gone, but it's also crazy the steps the sports have taken to get to where it's at.
That's Pete Winslow, a striker for the U.S. Power Soccer team. And this is Amputee Soccer Rising, a co-production of the American Amputee Soccer Association and Amplitude magazine. This episode is brought to you by the American Amputee Soccer Association, dedicated to promoting amputee soccer through education, coaching, and competition. Log on at usampsoccer.org. That's usampsoccer.org. I'm your host, Larry Borowski, the editor of Amplitude, and here's the first thing you need to know about this month's guest, Pete Winslow. He is an amputee, he is a soccer player, but he doesn't play amputee soccer. Winslow plays power soccer, an adaptive version of the game that's played in power wheelchairs. Power soccer originated in France during the 1970s, became popular in North America in the 1980s. Within the United States, there are about 60 power soccer teams, from recreational levels all the way up to the national team. That's the type of broad reach and popularity amputee soccer is trying to build. And Pete Winslow has been there almost since the beginning. He knows a thing or two about creating a soccer ecosystem from the ground up. The first thing we asked him was, who plays power soccer?
When you see power soccer and you see everybody who plays, just the amount of disabilities that it covers is quite vast. And with how society looks at people with disabilities, you could see these people off the court and think that they could never do such and such. And I think that's really sucky coming from our perspective, because as soon as the whistle blows and we're in between the lines, we are some of the best athletes in the world. And it's crazy to think about that, because when you see us in everyday life, you might think, wow, they need a lot of help with some things, but you'd be surprised how independent everybody is. And then especially when we get on the court, I always like to use my teammate Nathan as an example. He has SMA and he can't move his arms very much, if at all. But the way he's programmed his chair, all he has to do is move his joystick a little bit and the chair is already going, 100%. He can't move his glasses with his hand, but he can spin kick a ball and save shots and everything. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you see it. I don't need as much help as him in my everyday life, but when we're both out there together, it's us helping each other, and that's it. And I think that's one of the key things. When people see us for the first time, they're always very surprised. You tend to just get sucked into the sport part of it and the cool things that are happening on the court. It's not necessarily about that cliche, inspirational kind of thing that we don't like to be part of, but it's just like a really exciting, fun, high impact thing. And you see that with any of the soccer teams in the ENT program and amputee soccer. It's different, and that's eye catching. And then it's also just, as a person watching from the sideline, that's really engaging.
Winslow, who has congenital differences in all four limbs, started playing power soccer as a teenager growing up in Minneapolis. The first time he tried it at a rehab facility called the Courage Center, it literally took a bribe to get him out there onto the court.
I loved baseball as a kid. I played t-ball and loved basketball, throwing a football around, but soccer had never been a huge thing in my life, especially when I was a kid. The MLS wasn't a huge thing at that point. When I was there at Courage Center, a lady tracked me down and said, "Hey, you got to talk to our head of sport." They gave me a little bit of the lowdown of power soccer, and I was like, well, I'm not really a huge soccer fan, so I wasn't super into it. I was like, sure, I guess, whatever. And then what really hooked me was when she said, well, if you show up, we'll give you free lunch. And that really cheap hot dog and bag of chips changed my life, really, in the sense that it got me to go, and I tried it. And within minutes, I knew that was something I wanted to do. And it obviously changed my outlook on soccer and just sports in general. I had done all the other sports and knew I couldn't be in a league like what my friends were doing. And so this was like, oh yeah, this is my sport now.
And that was back in 2007, and Winslow could hardly have picked a better time to get involved. The first Power Soccer World Cup was held that year, which the United States won. A new international governing body was promoting the game across the world, and new rules and better technology were making the sport more exciting and more competitive.
When I got into the sport, I'd kind of gotten in kind of right at the turning point of when the rules changed and the ball size changed. Because for a while there, the game was very different. Like you couldn't drive backwards. And so there's just a lot of things. So I got in at the sport pretty much right after those rule changes were implemented. So the game was already faster than it had started. From there on, I mean, it just got better and better. So I think in around 2012, our current chairs that we use today, called the Strikeforce chairs, were created. Those, I mean, have absolutely changed the game. Now you've got a piece of equipment that can hit the ball really hard and move fast. And now it's about how much work are you going to put in? How good are you of a driver? What's your niche as a player? Like it boils down to the athlete now, and that's what pushes everybody to be better.
In 2011, Winslow played his way onto the U.S. national power soccer team and helped it win a second consecutive World Cup. He's played in 2 more World Cups since then, while helping power soccer evolve into a national game with hundreds of players nationwide. Winslow plays in the 10-team Premier Conference, which is the most competitive power soccer league in the U.S., but there's also high-level club competition in the 9-team Champions Conference, the 7-team President's Conference, and the 11-team Founders Conference. And that's not even including a couple dozen independent clubs and recreational teams that are scattered from coast to coast. That's the type of growth curve amputee soccer is trying to achieve. The U.S. only has about a dozen amputee soccer clubs at the moment, but Winslow absolutely believes the game can duplicate power soccer's success over time. But there are no shortcuts.
One of the main things with trying to get players and teams created, it's probably more important just to like get families and the community to see the sport. It's not about tracking the individual soccer player. It's about getting eyes on the sport, and then those families must know somebody in their circles that have a disability. We did a demo on the University of Minnesota campus, and one of the fans that was watching came up and was like, "Hey, my brother lives in I forget where, but he's in a wheelchair and he's never heard of this. Could I just exchange information with you and take some video?" And we heard immediately after that, like he was hooked. Like he wanted to figure out how he could play. And that's how it spreads. As much as I'd love to just be able to find every person in a wheelchair and recruit them, it's more about it's a lot of word of mouth, and I think that's super important for any of these leagues. I've talked to the deaf women's team and the CP men's and women's teams, and they always say like they're shocked that we have 60 teams in the country and 40 of them compete, and we've got recreational teams, and that just goes to show how lucky we are. Before U.S. soccer entered the picture, we were all on our own dime for traveling and getting places, and we don't have the eyes on the sport then like we do now, and so it was sometimes tough treading, and but it's absolutely paid off. The U.S. soccer ENT stuff, like that has put power soccer on the map in the best way possible that I could never have dreamt of. Especially if you had asked me that first year I ever started playing, it was like, man, I could not have foreseen what it is today. Now we kind of think of let's get it perfected for the people that are going to come after us.
And that's the second time you've heard Winslow talk about the ENT programs. ENT stands for Extended National Team. These are adaptive soccer squads that represent the U.S. in international competition. The ENTs stand alongside the U.S. men's and women's national teams, and they're affiliated with U.S. Soccer, the national governing body for the sport. The Power Soccer team is one of 5 ENTs for adaptive soccer, along with men's and women's cerebral palsy teams and the men's and women's deaf teams. The U.S. amputee soccer teams aren't part of the ENT family yet, but they're under consideration to join the group. And Winslow is ready for them to join.
I had never seen them before until this last Adapt and Thrive event we had in Atlanta. So we got to meet the team and the coach and get to know them, and they were so awesome, and they're so much fun to watch, and it's just one of those things where you watch a couple minutes and you're hooked. Ever since then, it's like, oh, we got to see more of these guys, and I can't wait to see them grow. I can't remember if they're in the process of getting into the ENT program or close to it, but I mean, when we got to see them play, like it was like, yeah, these guys should be part of the group. Anything we can do to get awareness of all of our sports. We are elite athletes at the highest level. We're playing for our country, wearing the crest. And just because we have disabilities or play soccer differently does not diminish the quality of play, does not diminish the quality of athlete we are. You have so many ways you can be an athlete. It's just bridging the gap and just seeing that being a high quality athlete comes in different forms. And the ENT program is absolutely the epitome of showing those things.
Now, Winslow thinks the ENT's impact goes way beyond soccer. We'll hear more about that in a second, after we give a shout out to our sponsor this month, the American Amputee Soccer Association. The AASA is growing amputee soccer at every level, from the grassroots to the global stage. From instructional clinics to local, regional, and national competitions, they're creating an ecosystem that invites amputees of every skill level to enjoy the camaraderie, fitness, and fun of recreational soccer. To find a clinic or league in your area, visit usampsoccer.org. That's usampsoccer.org. Well, Pete Winslow's not playing power soccer. He makes his living as a multimedia sports journalist in the Twin Cities. He's also moonlighted as a game day staffer for Minnesota United of Major League Soccer. He chalks up some of that professional success to the confidence he gained playing power soccer. The sport has that impact on lots of people with disabilities, Winslow says. And one of the main reasons is that sports creates a built-in social network and support system.
You are coming together with people that have similar things that they're dealing with. It's kind of the one thing that binds us together, besides our love of soccer. And then you get to figure out, like, there's so many other things that we all love. And it's beyond, the soccer thing is great, but really, honestly, one of the best things is that you can come into this community and everybody understands you. It's fine. They understand what you're going through on a day-to-day basis. They care about you. Sometimes they have tips and tricks on how to get through certain things and how to deal with certain things. And I think that is what can sometimes go under the radar from the untrained eye, but it's a sense of community. And you see the great athletes, but you also see that they can drive cars, they have jobs, they have spouses, they've got pets and families. It's breaking down the preconceived notion of people with disabilities don't do anything. And so that's really cool and impactful, as well as life-changing. I meet a lot of new athletes that aren't quite sure if, like, they're ready to go out there themselves. And then they see us out there and we're successful adults and, we've got jobs and everything. And then they see that this community is super welcoming and open, and that puts a lot of their worries at ease.
Winslow never used the term badass in our conversation about power soccer, but I got the sense that badassery is a big part of the game's appeal. Unlike so many other activities that bring people with disabilities together, this one isn't focused on solving problems or fighting for inclusion. Power soccer is about speed, power, creativity, and strategy. Same things that draw people to amputee soccer, non-disabled soccer, or any other version of the game. It's about cutting loose and trying to beat the pants off the other guy. And what's not awesome about that?
When you're playing soccer, obviously you have to be a good driver, but at the same time, you're doing things that you don't do when you're just, like, in a grocery store. The game is so fast and competitive, and I think that really feeds in to a lot of people's natures. I know so many people who are quiet when you're talking to them, but as soon as they hit the court, they're, a different beast. And I think that's what power soccer provides to people and sports in general. It changes people for the better. I vividly remember meeting a young girl. She was probably 8 or 9, and she was very quiet off in the corner by herself. And I went and talked to her, and, like, we were immediately best friends, and she was talking my ear off. She became a general on the floor once, like, those competitive juices start flowing, because most people have them. And when you're in a sport as fun as this and as fast as this, I think it just gets the blood flowing. It can be overnight sometimes where you're just like, I'm pretty sure I was talking to her yesterday and she wasn't saying much. And then all of a sudden it's like, she's the loudest one on the floor. I could hear her outside the gym. You see people grow off the court as well. And I think that's really, really a huge thing for our sport.
Back in episode 3 of this podcast, we brought you the sounds of an amputee soccer exhibition that took place at halftime of a Major League Soccer game between the Colorado Rapids and Vancouver Whitecaps. I asked Winslow if he sees potential for cross-promotion between MLS and power soccer.
I think that's such an easy, logical step. I know, like, the team in Colorado for power soccer is, like, very heavily tied to the Rapids. I know my buddy who's in charge of the LA Galaxy power soccer team is very close to the Galaxy. Here in Minnesota, one of our other teams is directly tied to the United. Just to get places like that to partner up and work with us, I think that would change. Because, again, the MLS is huge now. And ever growing and so much fun to watch. And so, like, if they can just bridge the gap in that sense with different teams in different areas, if you're a power soccer team, you've probably got an MLS team around. And so just like getting them on board would be huge. That's why US soccer has been such a great thing for us. It's changed the game for us in so many ways. Just getting demos and other things to work with those teams. I really think, we can go hand in hand because although they can help us, I mean, we can help them too.
Winslow knows what it feels like to compete in a World Cup. He's played in 3 tournaments already since 2011. In a little over a year, the non-disabled World Cup comes to North America, and Winslow sees that as a golden opportunity to showcase the ENTs and a chance to promote power soccer, amputee soccer, and all other adaptive forms of the game.
There's so much that goes into obviously hosting World Cup matches, and we're really excited for that coming up. And I think there's a lot of bridging the gap that I hopefully can see, in the future. Each ENT team could go do a demo or something during this time. And so, yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. We're coming off of our own World Cup last year. And so it's one of those things where it just makes so much sense.
And that's going to be a wrap for episode 6 of Amputee Soccer Rising. To learn more about U.S. Soccer's extended national teams, visit ussoccer.com and click on the National Teams tab. To learn more about power soccer in the United States, visit the U.S. Power Soccer Association at powersoccerusa.org. That's powersoccerusa.org. Thanks to our guest this week, Pete Winslow, and to Jeff Crandall at U.S. Soccer for making it happen. And thank you to this month's sponsor, the American Amputee Soccer Association, dedicated to promoting amputee soccer through education, coaching, and competition. Log on at usampsoccer.org. Amputee Soccer Rising is a co-production of the American Amputee Soccer Association and Amplitude Magazine. Amplitude's online at livingwithamplitude.com. See you next month. You've been listening to Amputee Soccer Rising.